This is episode number 6, covering the offensive tackles today, going with the big boys. We got our guest, Billy. As all of our viewers might know, we clearly don't set the bar too high on guests. So if you ever want to talk, bring it in. We'll accept you into this.
Oh, boy.
Very happy that you guys allow just about anybody, since I'm on here.
Yeah, the bar is set really low, to be honest.
Yeah.
So first off, to start off, what are we drinking? I have a nice Right, going on.
Got a PA representative Yingling going on here.
All right, I got a nice Budweiser.
Nice Bud.
You know what? In the backup, I got one too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, look at that.
All right. I
like
it.
drinking it when I'm in England, so they know who won.
Got my coronavirus mask on, just in case.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
See,
no problem.
the guest comes looking out for the host. That's what you like to see.
I mean, if Tim got it, whatever.
Infected.
No, we're clean. We are clean here.
Bill's surprised because that's the first negative test he's ever gotten in his entire life.
But I'm excited. This should be fun. Especially
I gotta say, I did a job interview today, and one of the questions they asked me was like, name a time when you disagreed with someone and you handled it in a responsible and reasonable manner. It's like, well, if you ever watch any episode of Post Fades and Cheesesteaks, you'll realize that my co-host is an idiot. I handle his ridiculous opinions with minimal amount of cursing as possible. So I think that is the best example of me handling it very responsibly.
I will say you don't curse a lot. I'll give you that much.
So I said I was like very reasonable and understanding.
It's a family program.
If you've seen some of the nonsense he put out there, you don't understand.
So I just want to say shout out to Wheezy and the Young Money Gang on some Miss Officer and Get Money. That shit got me hyped for this. So
Interesting.
Yeah. Also,
those would have been
forgot.
my 2 choices.
Yeah, I completely forgot that Juicy J was in 3-6 Mafia.
What do you mean? That's how he started.
I know. But I heard. I forget what song was playing, but I heard him. I was like, oh shit.
It sounds exactly like Juicy J.
Yeah. It must be his twin.
That sounds very familiar. I wonder if he's ever met him.
I almost got tiers. I got 3 tiers, and then within each tier, you could swap them.
Oh, I thought you meant you started crying.
No.
No.
Almost 3 tiers. The first 3, the next 3 or 4, and then the last,
I would
8, 9, and 10.
I would say 6 to 1. I really don't have a problem with any order that they're in because all these tackles are just the elite, so they're all incredible. So,
Yeah.
So I'm definitely set in my 10 to 4. So I'm good to start.
No, none of this fluid list nonsense. Listen here, Jackson. We're gonna have to stonewall this and lock it in before we get this going because I'm not having this fluid nonsense.
For right now, I'm fine with it. I'm just saying, if I get a little itch, I might just want to scratch it and move some things around. So
it sounds like you didn't get a negative test if you have an itch and you want to scratch.
The lists have always been fluid. Mr. Who was that guy you left off your defensive tackles?
Oh, shut up. No one cares about that. That was when we were learning how to do this. Now we're big time.
I mean, Tim probably threw a guard in here by accident somehow, so.
Yeah, I'm going to be surprised.
Jonathan Ogden's still in the lead, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, as we usually do, guests can start us off. Pop the cherry. Give us your
All right.
There, Bill.
All right, let's pop the cherry. I'm coming in hot on the first one, the gas mask man himself.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, Laremy Tunsil. I mean, obviously, he's very good. Was drafted, 13, somewhere in the teens when he was drafted. And if for not the gas mask, he probably would have been the first tackle off the board or offensive lineman off the board. But, I think the Dolphins traded away slightly for a reason other than rebuilding.
Because Bill O'Brien gave him everything that Houston owned.
Well, yeah. I mean, they got a huge exchange for him as well, which helps. But, I mean, he had 18 penalties last year. Led the NFL.
I saw that, yeah.
And
you're not wrong about that.
I was pulling my hair out when Jason Peters had 6 false starts all of last year. I couldn't imagine.
I was going to get to this. You got to factor, and I love Tunsil. He is in my top 10. I'm a little higher than you, but I did see the 18, and it did surprise me. But you got to factor in 14 of them were false starts. The guy got traded in the middle of the season, or not the middle of the season, but he got traded, right in the beginning of the season. It's not like he developed with this team right away. I think those numbers come down. I think that's a new team, new system. He didn't know what he was doing right away. 14 false starts. That's 1 every game. That's
too many.
That is to be fair, that's Jason Peters' average.
No, I don't even think so. I mean, that was that was way more than Jason Peters, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it just drove me nuts. Anytime you saw your offensive lineman with a false start, and this guy's got 14 of them. And who knows? Next year, we're doing this next offseason. He could be the number one person on the list. He's obviously that talented.
I agree with that.
And I think Bill O'Brien paid him for what he could become, not what he is. But, he's young and still, raw. But I thought the 18 penalties was enough for me just to put him at 10, especially with the other guys that I have on this list.
Fair enough. I mean, I won't argue too much on there. The 18 penalties, I am a big Tunsil fan. I think he's a stud. The 18 penalties did bring him down on my list from where I originally thought about it. And I was like, that's a lot. But yeah, new team. He got traded right with no training with the team.
And that's a fair point.
As I always do with these lists, I always make just off the top of my head top 10, and then I start to go through stats and look at it. And Tunsil I had really high, and then like you said, Tim, I kind of looked at some things, watched some tape, and moved him a little bit back, but he still made the list.
I will say though, of the people in my list, I would not be surprised if we did this again next year if he made the biggest jump. I think he's got it already. He just the 18 penalties is the glaring thing that held him back, I think, in everyone's list.
Yeah. And I didn't realize at the time, but he was actually technically part of the Wentz trade, because the Eagles traded to get to 8 from 13, and then traded from 8 to get to Cleveland's pick, and then Tunsil was taken at 13 by the Dolphins. So
I didn't know that.
Kiko Alonso and what was his who was that cornerback?
Maxwell.
Maxwell, yeah, and a first for number 8.
That was honestly the best thing either of those did in the Eagles uniform was get traded for.
Yeah, Kiko is like the weirdest. I look at some of his numbers and they're like all over the place, and like some people think he's like still really good. Some people think he is the biggest bust of a linebacker.
He's playing pretty well now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's weird, but
who's he playing? He's playing well for whoever.
Is he on the Saints?
That was gonna be my guess.
Yeah,
I think
so.
he
He's
is.
on the Saints. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah.
Who do you guys got at 10?
Tim, go ahead at 10 since that's how we.
So 10, I went with probably the one we talked about the most. I couldn't put him higher. Honestly, I know we put Gronk at 4, both of us, but Trent Williams comes in at 10. There's too many good great offensive tackles for me to put him over them. I mean, he didn't play last year. He's a 7-time Pro Bowler. He's also 32. Coming off a year he missed. I look at the future just as I look at the year past, which he didn't do anything. Clearly, I'm not an idiot or ignorant enough to not include him as a top 10 offensive tackle. I think he's going to step in on the 49ers and dominate immediately. I think that's a great pickup for team and player. He's going to just literally – I expect him to do literally what Joe Staley was doing right before he got there. But I couldn't make an argument to justify the 9 guys I have ahead of them. They're so good, and they played last year. I thought it would be insulting to put Trent Williams ahead of them. So I felt safe and comfortable with him at 10.
Fair enough. I have him a bit higher, but
I have him a little bit higher, but not for your reasons. You make a good point.
I just you know what? And looking at it, I as we all know, I break it down in 3 areas. What did you do last year? You argued with the Washington Redskins about cancer treatment. What are you going to do next year? Which I think he's going to do very well. And if I started my team right now, what I want you, 32, a little older, missing a year, that I don't know. He could come back and suck. But,
he's a little younger, or a little healthier, I should say.
Yeah, but, he's going to be 32 this year. His birthday is a day after mine, so, he was a day after greatness. But, we still appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, all right, Gazelle, tell me what foolish pick you have at 10.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are gonna have him, but I've always liked him, and I thought last year he really, proved how talented he is, helping Derrick Henry dominate the league. I got Taylor Lewan at number 10.
Fair enough. I'm okay with that. You'll see him pop up very soon.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, solid PFF. Sometimes I like what they say about players, sometimes not. But he has 73.4 rating, solid. And for this one, interestingly enough, I looked at some Madden 20 ratings. He had an 83, so that's also pretty solid for offensive lineman. He's only 28, so he's still just in his prime. So
yeah, he was honestly, I've had him in my top 10. as well. I don't have him in my top 10, but he was certainly on the edge. He was 11 or 12.
Fair.
Derrick Henry, number 1 rusher last year.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Tannehill, turned his
career.
Yeah. Your left tackle is, somewhat responsible for that, I would think.
Yeah.
So, and unless I'm mistaken, he's the only player on my list who has a reception of 10 yards and a touchdown. So.
Oh, well,
fair enough. You know what? I was watching that highlight, and you know what? With his, I've never seen someone so cocky and so just celebratory running in a 10-yard touchdown reception. But I'll give it to him. He's an offensive lineman, but he was feeling himself on that, and I loved every second of it.
Yeah. He also has his own. Does he have his own podcast?
He does. I actually started watching some of it.
Is it Bustin' with the Boys?
Yeah.
Who would have thought between him, Chris Saturday, Jeff Schwartz, that offensive lineman would dominate in media personalities? Guys on ESPN, their own podcast, offensive linemen, no personality. I just beat people up, and they're just bundles of energy and personality.
Joe Thomas is great on NFL Network. I love
Joe Thomas too. Yeah, it slept on. Taylor Lewan's he's probably the best. Him and someone else that'll appear later on this list. Lane Johnson's got a good one too.
It's a solid one.
You see more personalities and entertainment and media personalities in the offensive line than I think any other position now.
Did you see the one he did with Stone Cold?
No, I haven't watched it yet.
That was interesting.
I got to do that.
All right, Bill, I did see that he brought Stone Cold on.
Yeah.
Caught my eye, so I'll be sure to tune into it eventually.
What you got there at 9, Bill?
9. So I got your boy Trent Williams.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Smart
thinking.
Yeah. I think,
any tip to any future guests? Be as close to my list as possible, and you'll sound a lot smarter.
Yeah.
Bill, you're on point right here.
So far, I'm pretty close, but I got Trent. He didn't play last year, obviously, as we discussed, but I mean, he's just been there, done that. He's been in the league a lot longer than Laramie Tunsil. So, I mean, I was thinking, next year if I were to have a left tackle, who would I want, Trent Williams or Laramie Tunsil? I'll take the 31, 32-year-old guy who didn't play for a year, saved up, hopefully is healthy and is ready to get back to, being the Pro Bowler. I saw he was a 7-time Pro Bowler, but only an all-pro one time in his career. So, I mean, I guess that kind of just shows what Pro Bowls mean. But
I don't really get the whole all-pro. I have someone later in this list that's pretty top up there. I'll get to that, but the Pro Bowls and all-pros never match. You would think 7-time all-pro, you get a couple more all-pros in there. They're just couple of them is just
the all-pros I think are more meaningful, because that's the AP and stuff like that. And you can't even judge off of he played for the Redskins. You can't even judge off of his team's how well the Redskins did because the Redskins sucked.
I can live with that. I'm happy with that. My 9, I went with we literally just talked about him. I went with Luan at 9. Okay. I'm a big fan of his. You guys brought up listen, if you're an offensive line blocking for the rushing leader, you're going to get high up on this list. Mm-hmm. I think the Titans are a top 5 offensive line easy last year.
Yeah.
They lost Conklin, which is going to be a big one. But
way to go Browns, right?
Yeah. But I mean, him, Luan, Sadfold is in the middle there. He's still really good. Luan was the best player on that offensive line, and that's a top 5 unit. That brings him up there. 3-time Pro Bowler, 2 sacks last year. I mean, that's not the end-all, be-all. Resurrected Ryan Tannehill's career. You're talking about a quarterback that constantly gets hurt. He looks at the wall and gets hurt. He walks and gets hurt.
Has crutches on him all times.
Yeah, somehow managed to play 16 games. So you got to give the left tackle his due. He's a nasty, nasty person. I feel like he trash talks you where you probably cry afterwards. But I like him. He's a personal favorite. I think he's a stud. I think he's been literally dominant since he's gotten in the league. So I was happy with him at 9.
He's made the NFL top 100 players 3 years in a row too. So
3-time Pro Bowler.
Yeah, 3-time Pro Bowler.
He's honestly an elite.
And something interesting that I'm noticing looking at the numbers and stuff I've written down is all but I think 1 or 2 of these players were all first-round picks. So this is the one position where I'm not gonna say obviously it's not surefire because there's been a lot of busts for offensive linemen, but these are the ones that when you hit with offensive linemen.
I agree with that.
I think that's why Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Bill. Go ahead, Bill.
I feel like that's why you see, especially this year in the NFL draft, like you see all of the higher graded players are like the offensive linemen, and teams. It's a sure thing. They have the talent. They have the size and athletic ability. I feel like offensive line is like the one position that you should invest in early, because you can get a running back in the third round. You can get a wide receiver, in the fourth, fifth, third round, whatever it may be. But you're not going to find a lot of people who weigh, whatever these guys are weighing that can move their feet that quickly in the fifth round as well.
Yeah, they're usually most reliable too. Most consistent players usually your offensive linemen.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the one thing I would say is the college game is more spread it out, air raid. Like they're not really teaching, blocking. Like run blocking in college doesn't really exist. Like it's like you spread them out so far that you can just hand the ball off and let them run up the field. Where like I feel like you see a good offensive lineman, you're like, I'm getting him. Because the ones that later on, they're just look at you look at they're huge athletes that they're like, you know what, you're 6'6", 300 pounds, we might be able to teach you to play offensive line. Where if you're actually skilled enough to be a legit offensive lineman, you get drafted high. You show those skills, you move your feet. I think the college game is it's not as put an importance on the offensive line because it's more spread them out and get rid of the ball and hurry up.
There was 4 tackles in the top 12 picks this year.
Yeah. I mean, well, then look at the drop-off. I don't know the draft off the top of my head, but, yeah, those 4 went early. But how long until the next round of tackles were taken? I know Jackson went in the first round too, but after that, I mean, I don't know how many went in the second round, but, they go quick. They go when you're elite, you go top, and then you get the athletes and the prospects, you big dudes that can run fast after that.
Totally agree.
So my number 9, I moved around a lot. I don't know if I'm still happy. I think the problem with this list is that you could every lineman, I think this is the most talented group of top 10s we've done so far, where every player is so talented, so good. But it ended up just being preference on what I know about them and what I've been seeing. So number 9, I had the first of my 2 Saints players, arguably the best duo offensive lineman. So I got Ryan Ramczyk at number 9.
Ooh. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Time out.
Yeah.
I didn't think we would get to 9, and I would question your sanity as a football fan. You are an absolute idiot for having him at 9. I want to unload on you, but obviously I have Ramczyk later on in this list. This is arguably the most injustice you've ever done on this show.
Listen, you gotta hear my side.
No, please tell me. I would love to hear how Trent Williams, who didn't play last year, is going to be better than Ryan Ramczyk. Are you aware that Ryan Ramczyk was a first-team All-Pro last year, or did that?
Tim, don't give it all away yet.
No. All right. You know what? Oh God, you really at 9 you have to set me off.
Because I'm going to agree with Tim, but I want to hear Dak's. I think 9 is.
So here's once again.
He
Tim
did it for 1 year.
Once again, Tim. He's a really young. He's 26. He was drafted in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
So let me speak. You can look, just don't give me any, gestures to throw me off here. I think if we did this again, like you said with, I forget who you were talking about earlier. Tunsil, yeah. If we did this next year, I wouldn't put it down that he'd be easy top 3, 4, 5. But I just think, like I said, you could switch any of the orders around. All these players are incredible. I just think so far, there's a couple players that have been doing it a little better than him so far.
So the fact that he made it first-team All-Pro, he was one of 2 of the best offensive tackles in the NFL, puts him at 9.
Right tackles.
Hey man, this is my list. But yeah, he obviously a great player. I'm sure you'll touch on over 1,000 snaps, 0 sacks, only 6 penalties.
And that says 9 to you?
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, this list was hard.
It was. I'm interested to see, your list later down. I'm curious who you moved up.
This is the one. I've dealt with a lot of your stupid opinions. This is the dumbest one I've heard.
All right, Billy, what's your 8? Let's keep rolling.
We gotta really limit we gotta have a 2-drink minimum going into this.
I'm still on my first, so don't worry.
Yeah.
I was trying to help you with that. Oh, God.
So number 8, this one was, tricky, I guess, for me. And I thought, I have Taylor Lewan out of my top 10. But I thought this guy was, is just as good, if not better, honestly. Anthony Costanzo on the Colts. I know he's been there a while.
Okay.
They stunk, obviously, when they first drafted him because he had no one else along the line with him. But they had the 3rd best offensive line in the NFL last year. He had he let 3 sacks and 2 penalties and over 1,000 snaps last year. He just signed a two-year extension with them to remain their left tackle. And granted, he's playing alongside of Quentin Nelson, who they just drafted. But I thought, he's been there since he pretty much started that turnaround of getting the Colts offensive line out of misery. And, I think he's a solid player. Outside of that, I don't have too much, but I just thought he was a better option than Trent Williams and Laremy Tunsil at this stage of his career. He's been there, done that. And he's played out of his entire career. He's played there's been 144 games that he's been possible to play in. He's played 132. And that's a lot more than some of the people that I have, higher in this list. So
listen, I don't hate it, but here's my thing: is the 3 sacks. You realize my top 5, all 5 of them combined, had less than 3 sacks given up.
Well, that's why he's number 8 and not in my top 5.
But listen.
Because I agree, the top.
Costanzo was my 15 for me. Costanzo was my 15 for me. He didn't make my top 10. This is a lot better than Ram Chicken 9. Ram Chicken 9 is inexcusable. I can live with Costanzo.
I didn't have Costanzo on my top 10.
Okay, so you guys had Taylor Lewan.
No, that's a fair swap.
Costanzo had a. I put him in.
He was I think he was 2nd all-team All-Pro last year as well.
I would say
so
the Colts.
I can live with that.
Colts have arguably one of the best lines in the league.
I guess granted, PFF gave them the 3rd best offensive line last year, behind the Eagles and maybe the Ravens.
Okay.
And he was 2nd team All-Pro last year. I don't think Taylor Lewan.
I have no problem with him. I'm just saying that my top 5 combined had less sacks given up than he did.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine.
We're at 8. We're at 8, Tim. Give him some slack.
To be fair, though, Jacoby Brissett isn't really the quarterback to, avoid sacks or to get rid of the ball quickly.
But you guys had Taylor. I had Anthony.
I can live with that. No, I can live with that. I have no issues with that. I have no issues. I was just bringing up an interesting point.
He was on the cut. I'll put that much down. I wrote him down.
Yeah, no.
That's good.
Costanzo's a good player. Honestly, I think one of the biggest bumps is because he talked about retiring I think it was last year or this year or whatever, and decided to stick around, and that was big because if they lose him, I know Nelson's a stud, but their offense line falls off.
I actually had Costanzo at 12. I'm just looking at my paper. I wrote down a top 15. He was 12. So
you had Ramchick at 9, so we don't really put much trust in your list.
There's always a little bit of sauce in my list. You know that, Tim.
Yeah. All right, so who do you guys have at 8? I believe it's Tim or Tim's.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
All right, so 8, I got one that we've already mentioned. I went with Laremy Tunsil.
Okay.
He is someone that I do expect to be higher on this list. Obviously, I love him. I can't ignore the 18 penalties.
I love him too. That's why I had him at 8.
Oh,
wow.
I feel worse that we agreed on something. But he gave up 3 sacks as well. So I made jokes about Costanzo. Yeah. But again, I think that's more on him not getting used to the system. If you factor in, Deshaun Watson was sacked 62 times 2 years ago for the most in the league, and this year was 44. We talked about some of the quarterbacks. I still think Watson holds that ball too long, but that is an immediate change. He cut off 18 sacks off of his year-to-year total. Laremy Tunsil is the name to excuse on that one. Now, because I'm someone that comes with facts, knowledge, and highlights, I do have one of Shaboy. So I'm going to conquer your screen real fast. Is it conquered?
No.
Yes. Okay, good. So just watch your boy here. You'll see. I'll full screen it for you.
Oh, what a guy!
Just see him right there in the 2 stance, which seems more impressive. But this guy's just bent over, not even fit on the hand, and he's ready to go.
He's a big boy.
Oh, he's a big boy indeed.
How tall is he?
I would say 6'4" or 5. So just watch your boy. He's the one right here with the circle. Baldy made it easy. So he's just gonna this is slow motion.
Film.
Look how quick this is. This is a 300-pound man running all the way down. Vic Beasley's over here, right there. Oh, I just beat this dude. Bow! no way. This guy, Vic Beasley's like, you know what? I'm going to dress you, no problem. Larry Tunsil, 300-pound ass. He's the left tackle coming from the other side of the line, sprinting through everyone, and we managed to not hit him. Deshaun Watson was not getting that ball off if Tunsil doesn't come across. Could you imagine how Vic Beasley feels like, dude, just undress this right tackle, coming in hot. Oh, my God, who's hitting me? It's the tackle from the other side of the play. The guy's quick. The guy's fast. He's an athlete, big-bodied, and he's most known for the gas mask on draft night. But I'll tell you one thing. He hits that gas mask and takes that thing off laughing. You know what that tells me is he's got some lungs. He is very well conditioned because if I was hitting that gas mask, I'd be coughing up a lung. He's just laughing off it. Like, he's got the big lungs and conditioning that you want to see in an offensive lineman. I don't see why that dropped his draft stock. I think I would have raised him up a couple picks if it was me, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think – because I had him at 8. I think he arguably would have went top 6 if not for that gas mask bullshit. But
yeah, without a doubt, like I said, big lungs, didn't even cough. He just laughed. I would have bumped him up. His condition's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I really like him. Like that video was actually pretty impressive. You shown. I'm happy you shared that because I also watched that video, and I mean, I already knew he was an agile, quick guy for how big he is. But
see him, he's just shuffling.
He literally took one step and hopped over to that side and was able to get back.
He got to Vic Beasley, who beat his man disgracefully and saved Watson, which is absurd.
Yeah, I would have put him.
Rusher on the other side of the line gets blocked by the offensive tackle on the other side.
Yeah, I was surprised he's been in the league since 2016 draft. I didn't know he's been in the league that long already. But I mean, I think he played a little bit of guard for the Dolphins and then moved over to left tackle, and so he's versatile. Yep. There's just the penalties gets me a little worried, but I think he'll settle down. The 3 sacks thing's not
2018 with the Dolphins playing tackle, he had 7 penalties, 2 holds, 2 false starts, and then 3 face mask, illegal procedure.
Just blame it on Bill O'Brien.
I think he got traded late. It's not like he was repping with Deshaun Watson every time. I think 14 false starts is absurd. I think that's more of you're not comfortable in the system yet. Yeah. I do expect him to vault himself up pretty high. I think he's in that top 3 left tackle conversation. But I agree. I wanted to put him higher, but then I saw the 18 penalties and I couldn't do it.
Yeah, same for me. That's about the same piece I have with him, so I don't got much more to add. But
so 7?
7. Go ahead, Bill.
All right. So I think Dakota, you probably have him a little higher, but I also have the Saints duo counterpart, Teron Armstead.
Ooh.
You know what?
I got 7.
Hold on. I'm going to say is Billy has followed the golden rule beautifully because I also have Teron Armstead at 7. As a guest, and everything will be fine. So I got to say, Bill, you're learning quick. I like that. Yeah. Go ahead. I didn't mean to
I'm concerned that you guys think I mean, they're both incredible, but the fact that you think Armstead's not as good as Ramczyk,
I will undress
a little
you
bit
later.
concerning.
I will undress you later on Ramczyk. Go ahead, Bill.
It's difficult because, left tackle is definitely more of a premium than right tackle. So that was definitely a factor in my thinking. I don't know. There's some other good left tackles that I have better than him. And, 0 sacks last year is pretty incredible. So, what else can you ask from the guy? 2nd team All-Pro in 2018. He did tie, though, with Dwayne Brown in 2018. So it wasn't just him as, the 3rd or 4th best left tackle. But I think he's given up 7 sacks in 4 years, which is just crazy. I think he is definitely benefiting from having Drew Brees behind him and gets rid of the ball and, one of the fastest outside.
Hold on. I mean, I listen, I agree with you completely. But one of the arguments I was going to make is you got to remember Teddy Bridgewater started 5 or 6 of those games that year, and they didn't miss a beat. And, obviously they had a number 1 wide receiver setting records with Thomas. And the offensive line overall was really well. But the left tackle is important, especially with the quarterback with injury history that wasn't playing a lot of snaps. I think he was the security blanket that Bridgewater needed to be comfortable.
Yeah. Armstead's a stud. As Dakota pointed out earlier, was that, this might be the most top 10 heavy, list that you guys have done yet. So there's a lot of competition for – higher grading, but just where he fell in my chips, I put him at 7, but I did see some standings and rankings out there, by experts, where they had him in the top 2 or 3. But for me, I just had him at 7 because I think his counterpart is better. So
no, listen, Bill, I've already said you're following the golden rule, and I'm very impressed. The one thing we were talking about is either you're elite first-round pick as offensive tackle or you're a later-round project. And when you talk about later-round project, third-round pick from Arkansas Pine Bluff, but the guy was standing at 6'5", 300 pounds. That's one of those, listen, he's 6'5", 300 pounds. I'll teach him how to block someone. I don't care if he goes to Arkansas Pine Bluff or the Western University of the Blind. I'll teach him how to play football. I obviously at Armstead too. Billy, you said most of the things I could have said. Like I said, you had two different quarterbacks back there. Taysom Hill plays quarterback, and there's no issues. He's a stud. 0 sacks. I got nothing else to say. Billy pretty much hit it on the head.
Fair. I have him higher, so. So my 7. This is where I think Trent Williams falls for me. I get it. He is
over Ramczyk. Unbelievable. A guy that didn't play last year over a first-team All-Pro. Unbelievable.
Stop. 30. He's going to be 31 going into the season.
32. He turns it in July. Relax.
Well, he's 31 right now, so shut up.
Yeah, 32. I'm 25 right now, but
all right, but 31, whatever. 32 was drafted in 2010, 4th overall. Still was a monster, and I think having a year off was beneficial for him. Having to play on the Redskins, where he's getting beaten down because he's the best player on that team, he is going to benefit from having time off. He's going to dominate on the Niners because now that Staley's retired, he's their best lineman. You can't eat it's almost like the Gronk thing, which is funny because I put him at 4 right away because I thought of Gronk and I was like, okay, let's settle down here, let's move him back. Yeah, and so it's like he's been so good his entire he hasn't missed a beat besides an injury or sitting out this year. He just 7-time Pro Bowl speaks for itself, whether it's on name alone or else. But
see, but the thing is, we both had Gronk at 4, but the thing was with tight ends, it was the top 3 Gronk, and then it was a complete drop off. The top 10, it was hard to get people on that top 10. Where this was hard to keep people off the top 10.
I agree.
I think everyone ahead of Trent Williams, when I had him at 10, is younger than Trent Williams. They don't have 7 Pro Bowls, but they have more immediate success, obviously, because he hasn't played. I do think that the Niners are going to have a disgusting offensive line with him.
Yeah.
I think he's going to come out. I think in Kyle Shanahan's offense in particular, he's going to be dominant because he is quick, he's fast, he's athletic, he can get outside and run those screens. I remember I was actually reading Matthew Berry's 100 Facts today, and he was he put some stats out there with Raheem Mostert, which obviously I think he's a sleeper or whatever, but him, Tevin Coleman, me, Gazelle, whoever, if you run behind McGlinchey, Trent Williams, and all them in a Kyle Shanahan offense with George Kittle as your 6th offensive lineman, they're going to open some holes.
Yeah, I mean, look, I looked at his 2018 stats, and they were still good. 800 snaps, 1 sack allowed. I think this is more of a name alone thing for me, but he's been arguably the best tackle in the game for his entire career.
For a decade, 10 years.
Yeah, I couldn't knock him any.
But listen, you take 3 criteria. He didn't do anything last year. He'll have a great next year.
That's your criteria, Tim. That's your criteria to go off of.
This ding dong has Ramczyk at 9, so we clearly can't trust him.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
But I like Trent Williams at 7 is respectable, and I think that's about the highest that I had him.
That's the high. I would have pitchforked you if you had him any higher. If you had Ramczyk at 9, to be honest.
Yeah, but that's a good. I like Trent Williams as a solid play.
All right, fair enough. Number 6, Billy, what you got?
So I got the Philly guy Lane Johnson at 6.
Interesting.
For me, I think he's just missed too many games in his career. Let's talk about PEDs maybe or some injury. Yeah. If you average out how many games he misses a season, it's probably close to around 4, 3, 4.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't even steroids. I think it was just something that
just injuries though as well. I'm including.
He did tear his ACL 1 year, I think.
Okay. Regardless of injury, he had an 88. He was 2nd highest, I believe, among right tackles in grade, last year. But he's only had 1 All-Pro season. Obviously, Carson Wentz is much worse without him than they are with him, which is why I have him up at 6 above Teron Armstead. Because if Teron Armstead was to miss a game, I think Drew Brees is still, they're probably still going to win whoever they're playing. with their team. But Lane Johnson does affect the Eagles a lot more than I think a lot of other linemen do. But for me, I think he's just missed a little bit too much and isn't as consistent as we would like him to be. But when he's out there, he's arguably the best right tackle. But I just came across with consistency and missing games. I just thought it was a little too much. And I could swap him honestly with my next guy at 5, but consistency was my factor. So,
to be fair though, minus 2016 when he only played the 6 games, he has 4 seasons of at least 15 games. He's got 2 with 15 and 2 with 16. He has 2 with 12. Obviously with the suspension and injuries, but minus the 2016 where he only played 6 games, he's ultimately been pretty durable.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's fair. And he only gave up 1 sack last year, which is –
Listen, no arguments. I'm okay with him at 6. My 6, 5, and 4 are my trio that I've moved probably 10 times by now.
Yeah, I could have had him in the top 5 or 4, but I just thought, all right, you know what, missed games. The other 2 guys, the other few people that I have above him haven't missed as many games as him. But – great player, but that's where I got him at 6.
I would say the next trio, my 4, 5, and 6, Lane Johnson is a part of it, and he's just part of that trio that I keep moving. But at 6, he's not at 6 for me. I went with David Bakatari at 6, to be honest.
What?
Wow.
I had him a lot higher.
Wow.
I did.
Tim.
And I'm bad for Ryan Ramczyk at 9.
You had him at 9. Relax there, guy.
6.
That's disrespectful.
Listen,
that is disrespectful.
I looked more into it, and I'm pretty. I had him higher. I did.
Have you watched tape? Did you watch him?
Or just Larry Thompson?
He was a second-team All-Pro last year. Very good, and I do have some tape on him. Don't you worry.
What about the last 4 years, Tim?
Yeah, I hear you. He had 11 penalties last year. 6 holding penalties. His run blocking isn't as good as everyone else. His pass blocking is elite. His pass blocking is top 3. His run blocking is below the rest of the guys I have in front of him. Now, wait, because I come with my facts and I'm not mean. I do have a highlight of David Bakatari because he is a man. I'm not saying he's bad. He's a stud. Hold on.
You were making me feel bad about my Ryan Ramczyk pick, and now I feel better because you're an idiot.
Yeah.
So here's my highlight for the quality, but you'll see, Ramczyk lined up right there, just abusing this man, throwing him around, beating him up like it's nobody's business. And you're like, oh, that looks like a third-string DN that he's abusing. And then you realize, oh, that's just, Khalil Mack.
Tim, what do you got, like CAN Wi-Fi out there? It's like wired for recyclables.
You saw what I needed to see.
I watched that same clip, and I was like, holy shit, he beat the crap out of Khalil Mack.
Khalil Mack, yeah.
Threw him to the ground like a doll.
This guy just threw the best DN or best pass rusher to the ground 6.
You know who else he did that to? J.J. Watt.
Yeah.
2 sacks, 6 holding penalties. You know why you hold is because you got beat.
No. Holding is the biggest bullshit that every lineman holds.
Yeah, when you get called for it, that's when you go to green test.
When you get called for the penalty, the ref happened to notice. That's when you get called for.
No.
When your quarterback holds onto the ball.
No. When you hold someone,
he plays for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers holds the ball for like 10 minutes.
When you get beat, you hold and bring him down. Bakatari's a stud. To be fair, he is. Let me see right there. I have him as a top 3 left tackle. I have a couple right tackles up there on my list. 6 is fine for Bakatari. He's a second-team All-Pro. He had 11 penalties. I told about the holding, 2 sacks. I get it. Aaron Rodgers holds the ball all day. But when you talk about a run blocker, he's not as high as the other guys I have as well.
Tim, are you not –
complete game.
2 rebuttals to that, and I have a third that I'm not going to mention because I want to save.
Yeah, I'm going to save my tea for.
Yeah. But one, I don't really think it's not really a run blocking or a running league, so I would always put like pass blocking above run blocking just because. Do you not prioritize left tackles over right tackles?
We have there to get to this top 10. You have to be a good pass blocker or an elite pass blocker. It's when you're very good at run blocking is what gets you higher on this list.
What about being really good at pass blocking?
He's an amazing
because it's a passing league.
But I have all 5 of the guys I have in front of them are great pass blockers, better run blockers. You're talking about
left tackle is also
holding and 2 sacks. Like it's not like these are like it's not like he had 0 sacks. The top 5 I have in front of him have all less sacks than him. 3 of them had 0 sacks last year. Like it's not even close.
I think left tackle, you got to put more of a emphasis on than right tackle.
You're holding on to the fact that Aaron Rodgers holds on the ball until,
No. I'm going to save my other, same with Dakota. We're going to save our,
Listen,
our
I knew this was
information
going to be the one that stirred the pot. And like I said, from 4, 5, and 6, I've switched them out multiple times. I had him at 4, and I moved them around.
Should have kept him there.
I feel comfortable with them at 6.
Okay. Dakota, what do you got?
Number 6. Let me make sure I have this correct. Number 6, I had Mitchell Schwartz of the Kansas City Chiefs.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he's a pretty low-key player. You don't hear his name a whole lot, but, like, dude's been super balanced on pass blocking, run blocking in most of his career.
Right.
Started out with the Browns. I believe it was a early second-round pick in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he only had one All-Pro, no Pro Bowls, but I mean, he helped the.
Doesn't make sense. Him and another lineman I have in the top 5 are like that.
I was like looking at all these numbers. I'm like, how has he not made the Pro Bowl once? 46 snaps, 0 sacks, only 5 penalties.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how? But yeah, I think he's really good. Obviously, helped the Chiefs win that Super Bowl with protecting Mahomes and getting that run game going.
0 sacks and 5 penalties. That's like half the amount of penalties David Bakhtiari had, and 2 less sacks. Interesting.
So Dakota, to go off Mitchell Schwartz, because I actually have him at number 5. So if I wanted to transition into that.
Yeah.
Lane Johnson, Mitchell Schwartz, I thought were exchangeable for me, but I thought Schwartz was much more consistent. As you mentioned, he started with the Browns in the beginning, so who knows what that. But I saw he actually had, I think he had 2 All-Pros. Maybe he had 1 first-team All-Pro, a second-team All-Pro last year. I think every single season of his career, he's actually played over 1,000 snaps. So just having that consistency over Lane Johnson was what put him above, at number 5. And, having Patrick Mahomes certainly helps. But, Patrick Mahomes also has to have protection up front. And, Schwartz, delivered his quarterback with an MVP and a Super Bowl this year. I just thought he was much more consistent on top of what, Dakota said with the 0 sacks and everything else. So I got him at number 5.
Fair enough. I mean, no arguments there. We're into my top 5 now, so I need to educate you on why my 5 are better than David Bakhtiari. But my 5th is Lane Johnson.
Okay.
Pro Football Focus number 1 run blocking offensive tackle last year. And that absolutely means something. He's the best run blocking offensive tackle. Let that sink in for a second.
I mean, I understand.
Listen, I didn't ask you. He also gave 1 sack. That is half as many as David Bakhtiari. And he had 5 penalties.
This isn't a competition.
David Bakhtiari had 6 holding penalties. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro, first-team All-Pro, best run blocking tackle, arguably in the league. I mean, I'll get to who I think is the best run tackle, but Pro Football Focus has the best run blocking offensive tackle, and he gave up 1 sack last year. That's top 5 offensive tackle. David Bakhtiari's stats can't compete with that. I know you guys are talking about the inconsistencies. He got suspended. Like, I'm not going to kill the guy. You get suspended. That it's not like you couldn't play. It's like you're getting laid off. You're willing and able to work. Unemployment asks you.
No, he's got the high ankle sprain last year and stuff like that. Like he's got other things that he's.
If you factor in, if he didn't get suspended that year, he probably played.
But he did.
Yeah, I know. But it's not
for something he can actually control more than injuries.
Yeah, but you're looking at the best run blocking offensive tackle by PFF, and he had half as many penalties and half as many sacks as David Bakhtiari this season.
Yeah, Lane's coming up real soon in mine, but personally, in my opinion, I think he's the best right tackle in the league, better than Ryan Ramczyk.
I don't. I have 2 more right tackles.
But to each his own. Not saying he's.
To be fair, though, I will say 3 of my top 5 offensive tackles are right tackles. Not to spoil anyone's surprise.
See, interesting. I don't agree with
that. I'll get to why. And you'll
say that again.
3 of
I won't get it, but I'll listen.
3 of your top 5?
Yeah, Lane Johnson will be the first one.
Are you okay? Oh, okay. Okay. No, I see now.
Listen, no one with a normal amount of chromosomes would have had Ryan Ramczyk in 9. Stop acting like that was a smart pick.
I think so this is a perfect segue from my number 5, who, in my opinion, at his peak performance, Teron Armstead is better than Ryan Ramczyk.
I don't know about that.
You talk about the 0 sacks. Teron Armstead, 935 snaps, 0 sacks.
What did the guy on the right side have? How many sacks did the guy on the right side have?
He had 0. Oh, he also had 6 penalties. Oh, look, Teron Armstead only had 6 penalties.
That doesn't help your argument.
24 QB pressures, 2-time Pro Bowler. I just think he is just at his highest level. I think he's better than Ryan Ramczyk. It's cool. They're like basically the same. If I put Armstead at 2, you probably would have thrown a fit.
Yeah, you know what? I would have been more okay with Armstead at 2 than Ramczyk at 3.
I think you are way too low on Bakhtiari and way too high on Ramczyk.
Yeah.
I disagree. I will back up my Ramczyk argument when we get there.
I'm curious.
I'm waiting to hear your Bakhtiari argument because I laid out all the reasons why he did not make my top 5, and I feel pretty confident about it.
All right. Well, I mean, that's really all. I don't really have much more to add to Armstead. Like I said, him and Ramczyk, arguably, in my opinion, the best duo in the league at tackles. There's a reason the Saints are so good every year.
I agree with you on that. That's one thing we can agree on.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. Absolutely. So number 4, while talking about the Saints, duo of tackles, I got Ryan Ramczyk.
Okay.
What do you know?
Okay.
I have a weird feeling Tim has him number 1, and I'm going to be a little concerned.
Possibly, he probably does.
Don't worry about what
he's played 2 seasons, which is great, or 3 seasons, whatever it's been.
3 seasons? What do you mean? What?
2-3 seasons. How he got drafted in 2017?
Teron Armstead was drafted in 2013, so he's much more years to look at. Okay.
Oh, you sound like him. This is like Lamar Jackson all over again. He hasn't done it enough. He's only got 1 good year, 1 MVP year. God,
yeah.
Guy for being 1 year.
That's never mind. Just go.
I got Ramczyk at 4 only because I believe he was the highest run blocking lineman by PFF the last 2 years.
You are right about that, Bill. You are right about that.
So he's the best run blocking lineman in the NFL for the last 2 years, not just the last year. 0 sacks last year. He's just young, and obviously he has a lot more room to grow. So when you consider that into next year and how he's going to do, I just had him at 4. And the reason, maybe if he played on the left side, if Teron Armstead wasn't there, I could have him higher. But I do think left tackles have a higher prioritization than right tackles for obvious reasons outside of Tim's thinking.
I don't get that. Why?
Because it's the blind side. It's more. Everyone knows.
I'll tell you right now. I have 3 right tackles in my top 5. Lane Johnson, the first one I admitted. They are better than the left tackle on all their teams, without a doubt.
Okay.
Lane's better than Jason Peters, and you guys can figure out who the other 2 are, and I guarantee you'll agree that they're better. Well, Gazelle won't.
No, I agree with Billy on the blindside thing. That's huge. You look at how many left tackles are in my list.
Yeah.
Your defense I put an emphasis switch sides.
It's not always often. Yeah, it's not always a seamless transition.
Well, I mean, the reason why they're not trying to move Lane Johnson to the left side, because he's obviously better than Andre Dillard, is because it's not that easy of a transition.
Because you have an elite all-pro right tackle, it makes no sense to bump him to the other side just because it protects the blind side. That doesn't make any sense.
Tim, didn't you play line in high school and middle school?
Yeah, and I'm educating you.
Yeah, I played line in middle school too, and I know for a fact you can't just switch around that fast because you learn to get your feet in different positions. You learn how to put your hands up in different angles. Yeah. It changes on each side.
I know. That's what I'm saying. But defensive line, specifically, can switch willy-nilly.
That's different.
Offensive line, you don't.
The defensive line doesn't have a quarterback they have to worry about who is looking this way and their body is facing this way as opposed to someone on the other side.
See, I think you're helping my argument because I'm saying you don't move the offensive lineman, the defensive lineman move. So it's not like the left tackle gets the best pass rusher every snap.
No, it's the blind side, though. It's more valuable.
I saw a couple highlights where Lane Johnson undressed Von Miller, and he was lined up on the right tackle side. He's the best pass rusher, arguably, in the league.
No, I agree, but I'm saying it's the – how many times do you hear that talked about with offensive linemen is that who's protecting the blind side of the quarterback? because they need to. The quarterback needs to have faith in that person to protect him because he can't see.
That.
He doesn't have eyes in his back of his fucking head.
I get that. I get that. But just because he blocks the blind side doesn't mean that he's immediately better.
No,
that's not what we're not saying. All left tackles are better than all right tackles.
It's not like left tackles constantly face the best pass rusher on every play. The pass rushers switch all the time.
Look how many more Hall of Fame left tackles there are than right tackles.
Yeah, we're not talking about essentially who's pressuring them. It's
I have 3 right tackles in my top 5. All of them are better than the left tackle on their team.
Well, that's your opinion, which is wrong. So
No, it's fact.
I have 7 left tackles in my list and 3 right tackles. So
yeah, I got 3 right tackles, and I just ran through my 3.
7 left tackles and 3 right tackles.
You have
Who do you have at number 4, Tim?
All right, well, we'll go back to left tackles. I won with one of the enemies, and I will. Okay. This is actually the last highlight I have for you, so enjoy yourself on this one.
I'm realizing now I'm really gonna hate having to edit this video because we all have different people for every ranking. So,
and you're gonna realize that I was a lot smarter than you were.
Uh-huh.
So this is my last highlight, and this one will hurt me because this one is involving a team that we love.
Why is it green? Oh, there we go.
So obviously, you see the big man highlighted here.
So who is this guy? What are we talking about?
Smith.
Okay. At number 4. Okay. Okay.
77 here. This is Super Bowl hero Brandon Graham right here. And just watch this man move so fast. Gazelle, you could not move this fast, and he's probably got an extra 200 pounds on you. So just watch your boy lit up. He's going to just throw Brandon Graham around. I'll get rid of that. Now he's running. Look at him running. He outran a Hall of Fame tight end. Just shoved a safety like he was a little boy. Running with let's just bring that back. I'm just going to have to bring this one back for a second.
You really had to show that against the Eagles?
See him here. Yeah, I know. I couldn't help it. It's the best highlight I found. It's such a good highlight. This is like an all-pro DN he's playing against right now. He's going to shove him like a little girl. I know. It hurts me to see. He's going to go outrun a Hall of Fame tight end, keep pace with Zeke Elliott, and then just take a little boy, Rodney McLeod, to school. And he wanted no business to do with that. I know that highlight was unfortunate because obviously we love the Eagles and hate the Cowboys, but that was an incredible play. The guy is built to be an offensive lineman. He's just the prototypical. If you were building him in a factory, as Mike Daniels would say in the top 100, this is your guy. He had 8 penalties last year, 1 sack. He's a 7-time Pro Bowler, just like your Trent Williams was, but he did play last year. 2-time All-Pro. Ezekiel Elliott has been the 2-time rushing champion with him as the left tackle. And I have one little sneak peek for you. He missed 3 games last year. One was the Week 16 beatdown they had on the Redskins when the Redskins didn't want to win because they wanted Chase Young. And then the other 2 games that he missed was against the Packers and the Jets. Do you know what the Cowboys did both those games? They lost. Tyron Smith, the main argument you can make is he's a little inconsistent like Lane Johnson, but he's averaged 13 games the last 3 years. That means he missed 3 games, but at the same time, 13 is pretty good when you're looking at a 3-year span. Mm-hmm. He's for everything you said about Trent Williams, you should say about Tyron Smith, but he played last year, and I still think he's a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the only thing with Tyron Smith is the injury concerns for me. I mean, the last few years have just been
13 games the last 3 years. I know he missed 3 games a season, but 13 is still a good amount.
Yeah,
before that, it's not like he's just disappeared.
What's weird is that he's 29 years old, was drafted in 2011, and Lane is 30 years old and was drafted in 2013. I didn't know Lane was already.
Lane was a quarterback, then tight end, then offensive lineman. It took him a little longer. Tyron Smith was a redshirt sophomore superstar offensive lineman.
I was going to say, did he come out after 3 years and Lane Johnson had to play 5 or something?
Yeah, because the guy, I understand the injury concern, but you're looking at the last 4 years, he's played 13 games a pop, and then after that, it's 16, 16, 16, 15, 16. So I don't really understand these injury concerns. 4 years in a row with 13 games, he's never played less than 13 games.
But you want your best lineman to play 16 games every year. You know what I mean? But think about it. If they're making the playoffs and he's only playing 13 games a year, that means if he's gotten hurt at the end of the season, he's missing playoffs. Or if he's hurt in the beginning, that's hurting their early playoff chances. That's a big deal, 13 games.
In 9 years, he hasn't played less than 13 games a season. That's impressive.
if you told me that I was going to have arguably one of the best left tackles for his career not playing less than 13 games a season, I would probably take that
easy.
right away off.
He's a 7-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro. The guy's a
listen, I have him higher up on the list.
As do I.
I totally agree.
I know. You know what? I did.
A little surprising to see him at 4, but that's fine. You win your right tackles.
You know what? I have because the next 3 guys I have in front of him had incredible years last year. It's like they had like superstar years last year. Like I break it down as always. What did you do last year? What are you doing next year? And if I started a team right now, where would you be? And the 3 I had above them, they had a better last year, and 2 of them I definitely picked for the future. You know, I'll say one thing. You better not have David Bakhtiari ahead of Tyron Smith. Listen, you're hyping up. And you know what? I looked at a lot of lists, and David Bakhtiari was pretty high on all of them. And I had him high.
For good reason.
And then I did research. And you know what? I did research, and I had to bump him down. I had him super high, and I was comfortable with it. But then I did this research, and I was like, you know what? I honestly can't justify keeping those high.
Well, I'm about to tell you why he should be that high. Well, after Dakota.
Yeah. I'll tell you right now, Tyron Smith hurt me at number 4 because I think he's a living legend. But I have the 3 guys ahead of him because of what they did this past year. That's it. That's the difference.
So, anyways, my number 4 is the good old Lane Johnson. And
okay. I can live with it.
Like I said, I had him I moved him the most, I think, out of all of these. I had him at 3 at one point. I moved him back to 7 at one point. Then I moved him back up. We get to watch him, every week, and we know how dominant he is. I mean, I remember when they were playing the Bears, Von Miller was shut down. When they were playing the Broncos, Khalil Mack was shut down. Then when they played the Broncos, Von Miller was shut down. When they played Houston, J.J. Watt was non-existent. The guy's just an animal. I mean, we know that. 88.8 PFF rating. I mean, he's got 89 in Madden 20. That's good for something.
Listen, he's a stud. He's an absolute superstar.
And like I said, I think he's the best right tackle in the league from what I've watched.
Disagree with you there, but I do believe he's a stud.
750 snaps, 1 sack, only 5 penalties, less than Mr. Ryan Ramczyk. And I'd like to take advantage of this the screen share.
One more sack though.
Let me
see. Please go ahead. Take away from my genius knowledge. And
no film. Just when shirtless has a 6-pack. Yeah. The man has a 6-pack, and he's an offensive lineman. He's a monster.
In a Zoom call with 3 other guys, you were going to bring up an offensive lineman shirtless 6-pack.
Because it's a change. Because how many offensive linemen do you know in your head are just tall, fat guys? But the trend's changing. A lot of them are so much better shape now. Lane's a good example. He's just a big guy. He's not fat. He's just very well built.
He's honestly probably he's got to be the top 2 athletic tackles.
Oh, yeah.
All I want to say is that you see the difference between my argument points and Dakota's. I
assume
and facts. He brings shirtless pictures.
I assume that people coming in on this video already have seen footage and don't need to be proven. They already come well versed in knowledge, so I don't need to show any footage.
But we're going to show him off shirtless for some reason because that affects his pass blocking ability.
I mean, it does. That's all in the torque, the quick movements. But I mean, Lane. You guys already touched on Lane. The only thing is, I don't want to say it's a concern, but the fact that he is 30 now does get me a little curious more than concerned. But he's still in his peak.
What, 37?
Yeah, exactly. And Lane hasn't showed any signs of slowing down, so I'm not really. I wouldn't say concerned, but it's just something to keep note of.
If anything, he got better. Last year.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty much all I got on Lane. I mean, 3-time Pro Bowler, All Pro. 2017, that 1 year he had was incredible.
Yeah.
Throwing around All Pro edge rushers.
You know what? To be fair, I don't know if you guys knew this, but Lane Johnson was one of 2 Super Bowl winners on my top 10 list. I don't know if you guys knew that.
I mean, I also had 2 Super Bowl winners.
We have 2 Super Bowl winners on here as well.
I'm just reminding you.
I mean, if you didn't have Mitchell Schwartz on here at all, I would probably be pretty concerned.
Yeah.
All right, there, Bill. Where are we at? Are we in the top 3 now? Or
Number 3, yeah.
Top 3. We are rounding third. So number 3,
Well, some of
I
us
have.
are.
Yeah. Well, number 3. Unlike Tim, I have Bakhtiari respectable at number 3.
Okay.
I won't argue. He's a good guy.
Granted, you see the penalties, you see the sacks. I wonder where that comes from, considering his quarterback decides to abandon the pocket within the first 5 seconds of every play anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, he's going to, give up some penalties, give up some sacks when the quarterback is scrambling and holding the ball as long. Bakhtiari has 4 straight All-Pro seasons.
4-team All-Pro. Where did you pull that out of your ass?
He was one of those guys,
hold on.
Two-time.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm looking at Pro Football Reference, and I actually
two-time All-Pro.
He's a one-time All-Pro, two-time Pro Bowler.
No,
two-time Pro Bowler, one-time All-Pro. He's an All-Pro in 2018.
No, it might have been the because there's like other voting for like All-Pro.
That doesn't matter. I do the AP. You know what? I apologize because Bakhtiari was a second team last year, so I'll give you 2. Sure.
He's definitely 2. All right.
I don't do.
But he plays to that level, so go ahead, Bill.
Okay, I'm sorry. Literally, the first thing that popped up: David Bakhtiari, All-Pro, Packers.com, named the 4th consecutive All-Pro team. So maybe
Packers.com.
Well, granted, yeah. So maybe it's like
but that's still first or second team. That's still incredible.
They had Donald Driver as an 8-time All-Pro too.
Yeah, but it's first or second team. So I think he had
on Donald Driver. He was solid.
Yeah, he wasn't an 8-time All-Pro though.
I'm gonna look when you guys speak. I am gonna look a little.
Okay,
more
so hold on. So clearly your facts are wrong. A stud left tackle. Don't get me wrong. Top 3 left tackle. 6th in the tackles. He's very good. Don't kill me on this. But the penalties, it's not just the penalties, 6 holding penalties.
It's his quarterback.
Yeah, you have to factor that in, Tim. Aaron Rodgers holds the ball forever.
You can't stand in front of someone for 45 seconds.
I get that. I'll get to this. I'll get to this on another offensive lineman I have a little bit higher. 6 holding penalties is a lot when you also have 2 sacks. You're holding 6 times when you get beat, and you just need to bring them down.
Or Aaron Rodgers scrambling out to his left, and the guy needs to try and stop someone because his quarterback decides to abandon ship.
Listen, I had him at 6. That's not bad. I had him as a top 3 left tackle in the league because I know he's blocking for Aaron Rodgers, who holds the ball longer than almost anyone else.
Packers.com, someone lied to me that he was
Packers.com.
Packers.com. Of course they had him as a 4-team All-Pro. To anyone watching, you clearly see we accept any guest. If you feel the need to argue your football opinion, we'll take anyone. Your facts don't have to be true. Your knowledge doesn't have to be good. We'll take it.
Well, if you look at the technique and the tape and everything like that, he's one of, if not the best tackle in football. So I have him at 3. He's consistent. He's dealing with one of the toughest quarterbacks to protect.
I agree. Listen, I have no problem. He's a superstar. And I
him at 6.
It's not bad though. He's top 3 left tackle. But the guy, I get it. He pass protects for the quarterback that holds the ball longest. But his run game, his run blocking has got better. But it's not elite. And when I'm talking about legit,
Tim, it's a passing league.
Yeah, but I'm talking top 5 offense.
Aaron Jones had the most touchdowns in football last year.
I wonder why.
Oh, because his left tackle can probably run block.
You couldn't even watch any.
Blocked for Derrick Henry. Did we bump him up to the top 5?
You bumped Taylor Lewan into the top 10 because of the Derrick Henry.
I had him in the top 10.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
I've watched David Bakhtiari tape, and that man is on a mission when he's playing. He just
don't take the 6 as an insult.
Throws people.
Bad.
All right.
Let's get back to some real knowledge and facts, and let's get back to my list.
Oh, God.
Go ahead, Tim. Do you have a
so number 3, I have my 2nd Super Bowl winning tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I told you I didn't like putting Tyron Smith at 4. He's a walking legend. But I put my top 3 had a better season this year than he did. And there's a couple things I want to point out by Mitchell Schwartz because I think he gets slept on. You know that Mitchell Schwartz is better than Eric Fisher. Eric Fisher's the first overall pick. Yeah. Mitchell Schwartz is better.
Eric Fisher is in my top 35 of offensive tackles.
So Mitchell Schwartz had 5 penalties last year. Mm-hmm. That is 1 less than the amount of holding penalties David Bakhtiari had, and 0 sacks. For a quarterback that moves and rolls around the pocket just as much as Aaron Rodgers.
Not on his blind side, though. Not his blind side.
Yeah, I know. He had 0 sacks, 5 penalties. In his career, he's played 135 games out of 135 games. Impressive.
Yep.
Now, here's the most impressive part about him. I did not have him at 3 when I started my list, and this is why I bumped up in the top 3.
Mm-hmm.
In the playoffs last year, the 3 games they played in the playoffs, Texans, Titans, 49ers. There was 142 passing plays. Mitchell Schwartz, of those 142 passing plays, gave up 1 quarterback hurry. Hurry. Not a pressure, not a hit, a hurry. And I'm telling you, these are passing situations where they were down 24-0 against the Texans. They were down by 10 points late in the second half in the Super Bowl. This is against teams that are elite. They are in the playoffs for a reason. The Texans, Titans, and 49ers have all respectable defenses. And when you hear pass rushers, the ones that don't have the motor, you hear they take plays off. In the playoffs, you don't take a play off. In the playoffs, there is no plays taken off in the divisional round, conference championship, or Super Bowl. Not a single one of those D linemen that he faced took a play off. And he stonewalled every single one of them. You're talking about the best defensive line in football against the Niners. You're talking against J.J. Watt, Whitney Marsalis against the Texans when they had a 24-point lead where all they had to do was pin their ears back and just go get Patrick Mahomes. And Mitchell Schwartz said, no, not today. He had 142 passing plays, and he gave up 1 hurry. They didn't even come close to him when they all knew that they were going to pass that ball in the most biggest pressure moment, where if you get a sack in one of those games, you added $3 more million per year to your contract. That alone put him there. And when PFF did their top 50 players from last year, he was their number 1 ranked offensive lineman. I think he came in 23rd overall, but he was the number 1 ranked offensive lineman. I put him at 3 for that reason. I thought it was a little low. 142 pass plays in the playoffs where every defensive lineman is going out of their mind to get their quarterback. And they all know if you're in the playoffs, Patrick Mahomes is going to throw that ball and either win or lose. And Mitchell Schwartz made sure that they won every one of those games. Are you talking about unsung heroes in that Super Bowl run? It's Mitchell Schwartz, and they do not win a Super Bowl if he doesn't play out of his goddamn mind.
I agree. I don't have a problem with you having him at 3. I had him at 6 just because of what I know about him, what I've seen.
That's why Bakatari was at 6, because of people like Mitchell Schwartz. To be honest with you, I said top 3. Then nothing against Schwartz, but top 3, it's what they did last year. And Schwartz, his playoff run alone, just put him in there.
Yeah, I there's certain aspect, there's certain you know how this is our biggest argument all the time, is that I like to look throughout careers where you're last year, what are you doing for me next year kind of thing. But
135 games started out of 135, but go on.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I told you I don't have a problem with you with him at 3, but I just think he's just been such a low key. I think he's just he's been so good because he's not in the limelight. Like he's not the one you're saying, oh well, Patrick Mahomes got sacked again. You know, it's because he's so consistent, and I think he might be honestly one of the better, well-rounded linemen on this, like as far as pass blocking and run blocking, where like someone like Lane's like superior run blocker, and like his passing's and their passing's like still good, but it's not like at the same level. Where I mean, I think Schwartz's PFF was, I think I have it right here, his pass blocking was an 84 and his run blocking was an 84. Like I think that's the 2 highest at the same point for anyone.
Yeah,
that was the reason with Bakatari being low. Is don't get me wrong, he's an elite pass blocker, and I know the penalties and sacks or whatever, but I realized that he blocks in front of Aaron Rodgers. But his run blocking is not bad. He is gotten a lot better, and Aaron Jones had a great year. But you're looking at Mitch Schwartz, who's just like, you don't sniff the quarterback when you rush against him, and he's a great run blocker, and he's consistent. He doesn't miss a game.
And like, look at who the Chiefs had to work. Like, they didn't have like a number 1 running back between like Damian Williams rotating LaShawn McCoy, and he was able to keep that train rolling. So yeah, I don't have a problem with Schwartz. I moved him around a lot too, so I don't have a problem with that.
It's honestly the postseason. That the 142 passing plays, when you factor in that they were down by 24 and down by 10 late in that Super Bowl, and you factor in that pass rushers don't take a play off in the playoffs. You just don't do that.
That's a good stat, Tim. I didn't come across that one.
I know this is your first time episode, but you'll understand that I bring the knowledge on the stats.
I've watched plenty of them, and I've seen disputed evidence of that. So
Don't let Tim fool you.
Oh, I know.
What
do you got?
Yeah, number 3, I went with Tyron Smith. I mean, I get the Pro Bowl and All-Pro thing. Like, a lot of times players at that level, like someone like a Jason Peters, will get in on name alone. But, I mean, Tyron Smith, even when he played 882 snaps last year, only had 1 sack. 8 penalties is a little high for the rest of the people on this list, but, like, you can't knock him. And he's only 29, 30 years old. Like, he's still going to have more years of greatness. So it's
he's one of those, like what we said. I think that was one of the. I forget Billy, I think Billy said it, or you might have said it, Dakota. Like, elite offensive linemen get drafted high. Like I just think it's the way the college is played. Is there's not emphasis on like smash mouth, run the ball, or like it's just about spread them out. But when you can block and you're an offensive lineman and you're legit, you're going to get drafted very high.
I mean, I had Tunsil 13th overall, Trent Williams 4th overall, Lane 4th overall, Tyrone was 9th overall. Some of these other players. Bakatari, I think Bakatari was late. He was 109th.
Bakatari and Armstead were late.
Armstead was late.
Yeah,
Armstead was 75th.
So I had 3 of my top 10 weren't first round picks.
And Schwartz was Schwartz early second?
Schwartz, Bakatari, and Armstead are 3 of them in my top 10 are top 10 picks. But then, I mean, you look at Luan. Luan, I think, was top 10. He might have been like 11, but Tunsil was right around there. Trent Williams was top 5. Lane Johnson was 4 or whatever. Yeah. Like, when you get them, you get them.
When, like, Trent Williams was with the Redskins, like, those – like, you could argue those were the 3 best – that was the 3 best grouping of tackles in, like, a division with Williams, Johnson, and Tyron Smith. So – it's good company.
And,
I just think.
Well, Jason Peters too.
And Jason Peters, yeah.
I'm sure it killed you too, putting Tyron Smith ahead of Lane, because it hurt me a little bit. Yeah. But the guy is literally he's first ballot living legend. Like, sure. He's so good.
He's
I had that highlight. The only reason I put that highlight up, even though he embarrasses the Eagles, is like it's just stupid.
Well, the funny thing is, like, when you have your favorite team or a team you're rooting for because of fantasy purposes, like, you always go into like, oh, who's that one player you like really hate to see playing on that team? Like, who's active and healthy? Like Tyron Smith, easily, because he's going to cause trouble for us. And how often does that happen for like you to say a lineman is someone that worries you on the other team?
You know who he reminds me of personally? I really, really liked him was DeMarcus Ware. Like I really liked him. If he didn't play for the Cowboys, he was just a player that you loved.
Ware, Smith, and Witten are all in that same boat for me.
Yeah, they consistently play. They ball out. They don't talk or anything. They're just so good, and you can't argue because they're amazing. Yeah. And it sucks
because they're a Cowboy.
Exactly.
I already said that he's only 29, but to me that like speaks volumes. The fact that he's still relatively young. Like that blew my. I thought he was like 32 or something because he's been in the league since 2011, but 29 years old and still thriving. So
I totally agree, and I guess we'll just transition right into my number 2 because I have Tyron Smith at number 2.
I'm starting to think we might have the same number 1.
I think we do. I think we all have the same number 1.
We all 3 do have the same number 1.
We'll see.
But yeah, I got Tyron Smith just like we were talking about. 29 years old. He's a stud. I think so. I looked up how many sacks he's given up in his career, and outside of his rookie year, because most offensive linemen struggled their rookie year. I think he gave up 8 or something like that his rookie year. But since then, I think he's averaging just a little over 2 sacks per year. 16, and granted, he's only played. Some seasons only played 13 seasons, but giving up 2 sacks per year as a left tackle. Tim showed the highlight earlier. And if there's, he's the vet of, the offensive lineman group, and he's 29 years old.
And like the NFC East, while they'll get, knocked here and there for their play last year, but they arguably have
the best offensive line.
Well, the defensive line, like speaking, like typically, like Cowboys have a really solid one. Redskins typically have good players on the line. Giants even at a time had good players on the line. And of course, the Eagles.
What was that? The last time they won a Super Bowl?
Even still, like
better this year,
the pass rush is there, and Tyron Smith, time after time is there for.
I will say one thing about the Cowboys line, and one guy that almost made it in the top 10 is the right tackle for the Cowboys, La'el Collins.
I had him at 11.
he was like, honestly, I was like, you know what? I did not realize how good he was, and I was diving on. I was like, damn, he's pretty good. But you know what? You know what pisses me off is that this guy was a first-round pick, and then ex-girlfriend or girlfriend gets murdered, and they were talking to him, and then no one wanted to draft him, and somehow signs with the Cowboys undrafted. Like, are you kidding me? I would have drafted this fucker in the 7th round just because he's a stud. Maybe he goes to jail. Maybe he doesn't. Just draft him. And now the Cowboys got Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, La'el Collins. They would have had Frederick if he didn't retire. It's just like, it's ridiculous. Like, of all the teams for him to sign for, I was so mad about that because you knew this guy was going to be so good. He just got some worst luck in the world on draft day. Like, you want to talk about Laremy Tunsil hitting the gas mask? Like, Collins got some real bad luck on draft day.
I want to touch base on like what Dakota was saying earlier about how like everyone thinks like the NFC East like stinks, like the place stinks. It's like I don't think so. I think the trenches mean a lot more in the NFC East. That's why teams are a little bit more even peeled, maybe. Granted, it's not like the college offensive style that a lot of people like to watch the Chiefs for. But I mean, I think the NFC East competes with each other because they have some of the best offensive and defensive lines in the NFL. So I just thought Tyron Smith's been there for 10 years or whatever it is now. If I was going to start a team to win next year, maybe not the next 5 years, but if I wanted to win, next year and I wanted to have a left tackle, I'm probably picking Tyron Smith.
Yeah. The other thing is you brought up a good point is, well, you win from the lines, and the NFC East is also the only division to have all the teams win a Super Bowl before. I will say, I'll give a hat tip. Dakota is the one that told me about that when
nice.
When the Eagles won. I know, considering how ridiculous most of his opinions are, it's surprising. But it is. But listen, it's not a coincidence that you mentioned those 4 teams build through the lines, and they're the only division to have a Super Bowl winner out of all.
Everyone says that like the division stinks or it's tough to watch. It's like no, it's because like we just play where I think it matters more. And
that's how you win.
Pretty, and that's how you win, and that's why we always seem to have at least. Well, usually there's 2 or 3 teams in the playoffs, other than the last couple of years. But yeah. So I got Tyron Smith at 2. How about you, Tim?
All right. Well, I'm interested to hear what Tim's 2.
I was waiting for this one.
Ryan Ramsey.
I was waiting for this one.
Here we go.
As the foolish clown with the red beard over there, I went Ryan Ramczyk as number 2.
Okay.
Let me start this off quick. First off, he's a first-team All-Pro.
Okay.
We'll ignore that because apparently that doesn't matter. Because David Bakatari apparently has 4 of them, so they clearly don't matter.
He also has 1 first-team All-Pro, so continue.
Yeah,
it's cute. It's
the same award. What do you mean?
Ryan Ramczyk is a first-team All-Pro, and he also has a second-team All-Pro. He's been in the league for 3 years. He has no Pro Bowls, which is just dumbfounding to me.
Okay.
Idiots like you must be voting.
Was he not in the Pro Bowl last year?
He's not made the Pro Bowl yet. For some reason. I don't know how he makes first-team All-Pro, doesn't make a Pro Bowl.
Let me double-check. I think Bakatari might have made the Pro Bowl last year.
Yeah.
Oh, I think Bakatari probably made the Pro Bowl like 10 times already.
That's because there's no IQ check when you vote for the Pro Bowl.
Oh, yeah. Last year he was All-Pro and Pro Bowl. That's crazy.
Ooh, interesting.
That's crazy.
What was he first-team All-Pro? Oh, no, that was Ramczyk in front of him. So let me finish.
Oh, my God.
0 sacks last year. That is 2 less than Bakatari. He had 4 penalties last year. That is 2 less than the 6 holding penalties Bakatari had. He had 2 holding penalties, 2 false starts, 2 illegal procedures. 2 holding penalties, a third of what Bakatari had. It's not even close. And as Gazelle mentioned, even though he foolishly put him at 9, Pro Football Focus did name him the best run blocker, offense lineman. Lane Johnson graded out as the best offense tackle run blocker. But Pro Football Focus chose him, and this was the 2nd year in a row that they chose him. The guy has...
Take my stat, Tim. That's okay.
Drew Brees never gets hit. Alvin Kamara has turned into a superstar in our eyes. And Mark Ingram got a nice hefty contract from the Ravens from what he did with the Saints.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas caught the ball nearly 150 times because his line kept him upright. Ramczyk is everything you could possibly want in an offensive lineman. I don't know what else you would want. He was rated as the best run blocker the last 2 years in Pro Football Focus. Hasn't given him a sack. 4 penalties. The fact that you put him at 9 is insulting. I'm almost thinking about kicking you off this podcast from going forward. I just
Jack situation.
One man show out here.
I can't reasonably hear any argument that doesn't put him in the top 3 offensive tackles. The guy's a stud.
Look,
I know Gazelle loves to punish people for only being in the league for a short amount of time and dominating. This is his 3rd year in the league, and he's got a first-team and second-team All-Pro appearance. He's been the best run blocker in the last 2 years. Out of his 3 years in the league, the only year he wasn't the best run blocker was his rookie year. I don't understand what you were looking at or what drugs you were on to put him in 9.
I think they benefit each other. We've never seen, Ramczyk without Armstead. I'm not punishing for that. I think.
You know what?
I think in a year he could definitely jump up higher. I think he is one of the best.
On my resume that I volunteer my time to help the less fortunate and not as educated in their football knowledge. This is like a free masterclass I give to you. And each time we do these podcasts, you just make it seem more and more likely that I should start charging you for this.
Let's just – all right, I'm interrupting you, Tim. My number 2 was David Bakhtiari because Tim is an idiot.
Here we go. Did you also know that David Bakhtiari was a 4-time All-Pro?
No, I knew he was a 2-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro, but he's had many second-team All-Pros, which is still very respectable. You seem to think that means nothing, which is incredible.
I didn't know.
See, I include that in the All-Pros. But I want to hear Dakota's reasoning for
was the second-team All-Pros, second year in the league.
So he plays for Aaron Rodgers. He's on his blind side. Aaron Rodgers, like Billy and I said, holds on to the ball a lot, scrambles around a lot, tries to extend the play a lot. You have to be incredibly athletic and incredibly aware to be able to play in that kind of offense. You can't just look at the numbers and say, oh, he had 11 penalties and gave up 2 sacks in 1,000 snaps. Look, Ramczyk's great. He's an elite pass blocker. I watched some of his stuff. Great player. I watched David Bakhtiari, and he is fucking throwing people. He will bully the shit out of you.
Listen, you're saying watch. It's because I played the highlight of him bullying Khalil Mack. I was helping you.
Oh, my God. Yeah, exactly. You said a perfect – I didn't see any Ryan Ramczyk highlights. Where were they?
I didn't need it.
No Ryan Ramczyk highlights.
I just looked at the facts and the notes that I had, and I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to waste my time. I don't need a highlight to show how great he is.
Look, like I prefaced in the beginning, this is the tightest list we've had. Any of these players could move around. I don't have a problem with you having Ramczyk at 2. I think he's incredible. But I do have a problem with you thinking David Bakhtiari is trash for some odd reason.
I didn't say he was trash. I had him at 6. You had Ramczyk at 9.
You talked about Bakhtiari.
Top half.
You talked about Bakhtiari like I talked about Aaron Rodgers. It's like, I mean, you even said all these lists have Bakhtiari so high. You think there's a reason for that, Tim? That you think they just write in the sexy name all the time? No. There's a reason he's so good. There's a reason he's at the top of the list. I just think it's surprising
that I'm so much smarter than all these other people.
Oh, my God.
I brought all the reasons why Bakhtiari is a very good lineman, and I put him at 6 comfortably.
He's very much like Mitchell Schwartz, where he's very versatile with his pass blocking and run blocking. I mean,
you know who's a better run blocker? Ramczyk.
Did Ramczyk run over Von Miller and Khalil Mack and J.J. Watt and all them? I don't know. I didn't see it. Yeah, show me the footage, and then we'll talk.
Tim, I think somewhat of the problem that Dakota and I might have with your list is, the whole right tackle versus left tackle thing. I just don't see it. I think left tackle is much more valuable than the right tackle.
For what? Because
I don't know if it's a harder position.
Yeah.
It's more responsible. That's for sure. You have to you are given the task of protecting your quarterback essentially. And that's what a left tackle is. That's why all the most of the great ones come from the left side.
And we don't care about your criteria. We don't care.
So when they're
talking about last year and maybe this year.
So when the defensive end gets past the right tackle, Aaron Rodgers is just staring him down the face and suddenly
he can step up. But if he's just standing in the pocket and his left tackle gets beat, guess what? He's getting sacked because he doesn't have eyes in the back of his head.
You ever wonder why Aaron Jones was so good the past few years?
Wait, what about Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram?
Alvin Kamara never led the league in rushing touchdowns.
Alvin Kamara had one good year. What happened to him last year?
Stinks.
Yeah. And Ingram went over to Baltimore and did a hell of a job there. So,
speaking of Baltimore, I guess that.
Yeah, I was just saying. Speaking of Baltimore.
Speaking of Baltimore. All right.
Go ahead. I've had enough of hearing this nonsense.
We'll go in the same rotation, I guess. Yeah. But if someone else wants to start off, by all means.
No, please. Guest goes first. Guest goes first.
Okay. All right. So Ronnie Stanley, obviously.
All right.
So I'm glad
Interesting. I also had Mr. Ron Stanley.
Are we 3 for 3 here?
Yeah.
It's about time.
Very nice.
It took long enough.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised how heated this. I didn't think offensive tackles was going to get this heated and go for, I don't know how, almost 2 hours. This is going to
be. Well, you put Ramczyk at 9. This is what happens.
Tim, we spent half an hour on tight ends and 2 hours on tackles.
To be fair, but this is what we said with Gronk. Is Gronk was an easy number 4 because there was no other tight end.
I know.
I had a fight to put in the 10th tight end. I didn't even know who the 10th tight end was.
Not to steal Billy's thunder, but I just want to say that this is the one exception where I look at someone like, so he was drafted in 2016, 6 overall, so he's 26 years old, and I always give that shit for like, oh, you know, how long have you been in the league and all that veteran stuff, but like when you're part of the, you know, offense that breaks the rushing record in NFL history, you have to be up high on my list.
I mean, you're right. The Ravens set the record for most rushing yards in a season by team. Lamar Jackson set the most rushing yards by a quarterback. He was Pro Football Focus's #1 pass protector. He gave up 0 sacks, 6 pressures, and he was a first-team All-Pro. Like, I have literally nothing bad to say about him. He's young. Yeah. I'd start my team. Like, if I was starting a team right now with everyone in there, he's a top 10 pick.
And Tim, you've been bashing Billy this whole time, but he said the smartest thing is that pass blocking, you know, linemen are incredibly important in this kind of, you know, day and age when it's a pass heavy league. And like you said, he's arguably the best offensive lineman for pass blocking.
Yeah. And that's why I had Ryan Ramczyk just slightly lower, you know, at 4, not number 2 or whatever, was because it's a passing league, not real. Granted, the Ravens, you know, did a whole new thing, but it's a passing league, and so that's why Ronnie Stanley is up there because he was the #1, you know, pass blocker, you know, off of PFF.
Which Tim, I can see your confused expression, but when half of Lamar Miller's, I would say his rushing yards come from undesigned plays, most likely, that is a testament to the passing abilities of Ron Stanley because of. He's able to hold his player in line for so long that Lamar has time to read a defense, react, and then decide whether to run or pass. So when we're gloating about how good he is as a pass blocker, it just attributes to his overall grade.
It might also help that he can avoid like every single sack that might come his way too. So, but we won't get there. We'll just
listen. Ronnie Stanley is the #1 guy, and like Pro Football Focus had him in the top pass protector. Ronnie Stanley is so comfortably at #1 for me. When I started this list, I put him in #1 and then did my research after that.
To make it even more entertaining for you, Tim, I actually had Bakhtiari at '1 yesterday, and then I changed it today to Stanley right before we started this.
I wish you told me Bakhtiari was #1. I wish. It'd been a lot more exciting at #1 than that. I mean, Ronnie Stanley easily #1. He's probably he's getting better. He's getting.
Oh yeah.
I mean, how old is he?
He's 26.
26. Yeah, 4 years
26. He just made the Pro Bowl and All-Pro his first this 2019 year. So, I mean, from there, he's only going to get better. And 0 sacks, four penalties. But here's a crazy thing. He only allowed 6 QB pressures. Like, I know Lamar's mobile, but, like, that's insane. Like,
but you got to also factor in, like, they set the record for rushing yards as a team and for quarterback. Which you got to props up to. We talked about Tyron Smith with Ezekiel Elliott being a 2-time rush champion and Taylor Lewan with Derrick Henry being a rush champion. They set a record, different records.
I have a quick question. When did the Ravens ever stink enough to be 6th overall? When did they get run?
They had a phase when Joe Flacco was like going down.
He wasn't drafted 6th overall.
He was drafted 6th overall.
Yeah, 6th overall, 2016 draft.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. See, Billy and I come with facts.
Yeah. Not highlights, Tim. We don't just show people blocking people.
One block.
So many facts.
One block, and it looks like I don't even know what I'm looking at sometimes.
Just out here giving you incredible facts.
He has a 93 Madden rating. Very, very good.
Yep.
Yeah, he's just all around. Like, I just can't imagine him unless he suffers some like gruesome injury, God forbid. Like, I don't foresee him getting knocked anytime soon. Like, he's just established himself at 26 is the best tackle in the game, in my opinion. And you just
without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. He is the best. This was pretty easy getting the #1.
Tim and I had Tunsil at 8, and then you and Tim had
I think we had Lou on.
Armstead at 7.
Armstead. I thought we had.
Yeah, we
Lou
had
on
Armstead 7.
But yeah, I mean, they're all relatively close. Like you had like Billy had Lane at 6, Tim had Lane at 5, I had Lane at 4.
Yep.
The only ones that
Tyron
was-
Smith was also 4.32 as well.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
the ram check for me was the only like crazy one, and then you had Costanzo, Billy, and we didn't have him.
Didn't
As I
have
said,
to-
we had 9
Oh, did
out
you
of
have
10.
Trent Williams? Did you have Trent Williams in there?
Me?
Yeah, he was number 9 for me.
So did you not have? Who were you missing?
So I didn't have
You
Taylor.
didn't have Taylor Lewan.
You didn't have Luan. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
fair enough. Yeah.
We switched out Costanzo or I switched out Costanzo for Juan.
Fair
I
enough.
think-
I mean, I could live with that one.
Yeah.
If we do
I mean-
this again next year, he's going to be the biggest jump. I think he's an elite offensive tackle. I just think that the penalties and the sacks are from not knowing the system.
I mean, honestly, if we did this next year and we had like Stanley, Ramchek, and Tunsil 1, 2, 3, like I wouldn't be surprised.
Probably, yeah.
Lane
Johnson 4.
Yeah, Lane Johnson 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Tunsil's definitely on the rise. Like he is.
Yeah.
Honestly, he is arguably right there. He's right there with Stanley. I think he's a little lower, but Stanley stayed with the same team and grew with the team. Like he was the left tackle when Lamar was a rookie, where Tunsil was drafted to be a guard, then bumped out to left tackle. On
Also,
a tank, and then got traded to a different team.
Yeah.
also on a much better organization than the 2 teams that he's been on.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
One's rebuilding, the other has Bill O'Brien. The other has a
Yeah.
franchise that's been in the playoffs for I think like 30 fucking years in a row.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
true.
Kids show.
Yeah, come on,
but
jeez. Last
30
time we let
years
you
in a
on,
row.
man.
Yeah, that was I think for me Tunsil was the biggest question mark because I knew Tim like already was very high on Tunsil, so I didn't
Right.
I thought he could have been as high as 5 or 6 for Tim. That's why was
I
curious
wanted
see where
to,
he
but
goes.
you know, I just like him and Bakhtari. When I did my research, I had to put them down. I could not get. They were 2 guys that I originally, when I did my top 10, were higher, and then I did my research and stuff, and I had to bring them down.
I mean, I get the Bakatari concerns with the penalties and stuff, and but I like the film I just saw in Bakatari. Like he
The film's
just
great and all, and
he just manhandled people like I don't see other linemen do.
But you know what? When it comes to run blocking, I like the guys that I had in front of him. And what I said with, I mean, Bakhtari was at 6, but you look at the people I had in front of him. You know, Smith and Lane, I just think overall are better as run and pass blockers. And then my top 3 were probably the 3 that had the best seasons last year.
I would say if Bakatari was on a different team, I'd probably have him lower. Not as high at 2, but I definitely factored in the Aaron Rodgers thing. And
Of course,
mean,
and that's what saves him.
yeah.
Because if he put up those stats, 6 holding penalties and 2 sacks with a different quarterback, it's a different.
Right, but we don't know what his stats would be like with a different quarterback. So.
Oh yeah, I know, but I just think you're relying more on Aaron Rodgers holds the ball forever.
But yeah, I mean, as far as like how heated this was, I would argue that you take any 10 of these, and put them on a different team, like they would start right away, no arguments. Like
Oh,
these
without
a
these
doubt.
guys are elite at their level. I mean, even Taylor Lewan at 10, or even Costanzo at Billy at 8. It's like they're all incredible. So
I mean, Costanzo, I think I guess I don't think I mentioned this. One of the reasons why I took him was I think he's got the second highest annual paycheck per year, behind Lane Johnson, of course.
Oh no,
I
yeah,
think-
Tunsil just signed himself the.
He si- yeah,
Okay, so
signed
okay,
as
you're
his
right.
own agent, as his own agent.
You're right. You're right. So maybe he's third now behind Laramie Tunsil, but 2 years for $33 million, like that's $16.5 million a year for an offensive tackle. That's a lot of money. Lane was at 18. Tunsil
Yeah.
could be up there.
Costanzo's good, but it's just we break it down to the 3 factors. Costanzo's I'm not as high on him going.
your 3 factors. That's not
These are
posted
the
in
3 factors
Cheesesteaks,
that
3
matter.
factors. I feel like this one was harder. I think the I think this is the second hardest to me as wide receivers was, because wide receivers, I had so many players that they could be number 10, they could be number 9, and then I just left them out of the bubble. The same thing with this one.
Who are
Collins,
some guys?
Costanzo
Yeah.
was in there. Collins. I mean, even I think Deion Dawkins, Temple Boy. He's
Yeah.
solid.
a short look. I gave him a short
Yeah,
look.
I wasn't he was like
No,
14, 15, but
Who I'd say, looking at a couple guys that weren't in my top 10, who I could see in the top 10 next year is Collins, which we obviously already hit on.
yeah,
McGlinchey, who's
Yep.
Mike McGlinchey, yeah.
real good. He's run blocker. You're talking about a stud, and he's got that nasty offensive lineman face mask with the bar in the middle. And then we briefly mentioned him, but Orlando Brown Jr. on the right side. I think he's also pretty solid because we talked up Stanley all we did with the rushing yards and everything, but we can't ignore the fact that Brown was also on that offensive line.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, Brian Bulaga is kind of older now, and he's with the Chargers. Andrew Whitworth, same thing with the Rams. He's a lot older now.
That was, to be honest, I wanted to mention. I almost had him in my top 10.
I wanted to just because of how
he was close.
He's been so good for so long, but
he's been so good. And I was, I'm kind of like you, Dakota. Like I'm big on, how much have you shown me or how much have you done throughout the league? He was one of the three out, just like Lil Collins and Mike McGlinchey.
Gave a quick look at Villanueva. Oh, I can't say his name. Villanueva.
Yeah.
Former Eagle who went over to Pittsburgh.
Dwayne Brown wouldn't be a bad option.
Yeah, I thought about Dwayne. I also thought about Trent Brown with the Raiders.
Trent Brown's good. Trent Brown,
yeah.
Trent Brown is good. He deserves because he was nasty when the Patriots won that Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
He was nasty, and then he signed the richest offensive tackle contract, I think, and
then
had a very good year with the Raiders too. Sleeper though. If he could stay consistent and if his team didn't suck ass, Taylor Decker's nasty too.
I thought about Taylor Decker, yeah.
Was
Taylor's good, but he's not.
Is he on the Browns now? Or no, that's Jack Conklin.
Lions.
Yeah, I was thinking of Jack Conklin.
Conklin I thought of too.
Yeah.
That's the thing, like all these. And you know what about Mike McGlinchey, though? Like, I watch him come out here and be like All-Pro, Pro Bowl because he's playing with Trent Williams now. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
They had him at 11. I think one of these articles that I saw. 11.
He's not bad. He's very good.
No, he's solid. Yeah,
Tim, he's your favorite run blocker.
Listen, I'm all about the run block because it's not just about passing, man. It's not just about passing. You got to do them all.
I'm getting loopy.
Well, I got to take a piss really bad after hearing Tim rant about how much he hates certain players on our list here. But
well, hey, I usually correct you on
anti-David Bakatari group over there. But
Ramchick.
Well, thanks guys for having me on. I had a blast.
No, yeah, we appreciate the support.
You held your own here. You were not the dumbest person in this chat today.
Yeah, it was you, Tim.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it was Tim.
What have you done for me this year? What have you done for me next year? Dude?
Oh my God, that's the most realistic factor you can go off of, Mister. He won an MVP last year, but that was only 1 year.
But we're not talking about quarterbacks. Come on now.
I know.
Come on now.
You were a first-team All-Pro, but that was only 1 year. Ryan
Bakatari was a first-team All-Pro.
Ryan Ramchick was a first-team All-Pro last year, but
Bakatari was a 4-time All-Pro.
Yeah, 4-time. Packers.com verified.
Packers.com.
That was the thing that's not going to get Billy.
That's going to make the cut though.
Billy, I can edit that out, no problem.
If anything, you can keep it. Just it helps you out too. Actually, dude. Bakatari, 4-time All-Pro.
Jermichael Finley and Bubba Franks were also 4-time All-Pro according to Gordon.
All right, well, get out of here.
Wasn't Jermichael Finley part of the dream team of the Eagles, or is that a different Packers tight end?
Different Packers tight end.
No, Rodgers.
Oh, no, I thought Finley.
No, you're thinking of Colin Jenkins.
No, wasn't it Rodgers?
No, it wasn't.
What's his face?
Pretty sure it was Finley.
He wasn't on the dream team.
No. There was definitely.
There's no way Jermichael Finley was never an Eagle.
Jermichael Finley was never an Eagle. You're
right. Rodgers was.
The only Packer on the dream team was Colin Jenkins. Richard Rodgers was on the Eagles last year when him and Deontay Burnett were catching passes at the end of the season.
Richard, right. You're right. Okay.
Colin Jenkins, I'm telling you right now. He was a Packers defensive lineman.
Donald Lee. It was Donald Lee.
Oh.
Colin Jenkins was defensive tackle, and then Donald Lee.
Good name there, Dak.
Yeah.
Donald Lee.
Yeah.
Was he also a 4-time All-Pro according to Green Bay?
Probably. Packers.com.
All right.
All right, boys.
Well,
good chatting.
It was
glad Tackles got the love, so peace out.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
See you guys. I'll see you.
See ya.